These floods, the fires that we see in California, the droughts in West Texas and the Panhandle are happening at record levels of intensity and devastation. They are claiming lives and property, and in some cases, entire communities. And it's not happening through an act of God or because of Mother Nature. It is us. Our emissions, our excesses, our own inaction in the face of the facts and the science and the truth has produced these results. And the trajectory that we are on right now will make the devastation that we just described pale in comparison unless we take action at this moment. Scientists, those who are studying the same things that you are studying, tell us that we have 10 years within which to act, to free this country from a dependence on fossil fuels and fully embrace renewable energy, to make sure.
I like that he said fully embrace renewable energy, but later he did seem to backpedal from that answer. So he answers about climate change, and then later a Bernie Sanders supporter, and good on CNN for accurately describing the town hall participants, asked a question about his fossil fuel funding. Take a look.
Recently, you signed the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge and have also returned donations in this campaign that do not conform to this pledge. Considering you've received over the years more fossil fuel money than every politician except Ted Cruz, many might consider that to be too little too late. In light of your voting record, sometimes sympathetic to the fossil fuel industry, how do you as a Democrat defend your history of accepting fossil fuel money at such a high rate, and why should we believe you won't continue voting their interests?
Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. 5 years ago, I swore off all political action committee money, all grassroots campaigns for Congress. And then last year in Texas, we led the largest grassroots effort in that state's history without a dime of PAC money, including from energy companies. We were able to take a state that was 50th in voter turnout to one that is a contender in our national politics. And we did it by bringing everybody in, writing nobody off, taking no one for granted. Democrats, Republicans, independents alike. So you ask about the contributions that we received from those workers in the oil and gas industry in Texas. I'm proud of those donations, and I'm grateful for the very tough work that they do day in and day out. But it turns out that we raised more money in the grassroots fashion that I just described than any Senate candidate in the history of the United States of America. So we received contributions from that industry and every other single industry, but never from corporations, always from human beings, from real people.
Okay. So he argues, well, I didn't accept PAC money. We don't accept the money from corporations. Only from individuals. Okay, fair enough. But how have you voted? And that's important. So I just want to give you context into the way he actually acts versus the way he speaks, which is what you saw in that video. So O'Rourke voted twice to lift longstanding restrictions on crude oil exports. The decision was a boon to the world's most dangerous industry, making the reckless exploration of reserves in the Permian and Appalachian Basin profitable and helping to set the US on the path to becoming a net exporter of fossil fuels. 2 years after the vote, exports had tripled. There was also a different vote that I'm gonna look for in just a second. He voted with the Republican Party as well to encourage more natural gas exports and to stop a Democratic bill to ban drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. So you can try to find little weaselly ways out of that question, but how have you voted? And the votes are not good.
Yeah, so look, he did not take corporate PAC money, and he was one of the first to do that. And I've given him credit for that about 1,000 times over. But so that's why it was weird to me that he broke the fossil fuel pledge that the questioner was asking about there. But when Anna earlier in this coverage mentioned that he raised about $500,000 from oil executives, then it became a little clearer why he broke it, because that's a lot of money. And so when he says he's proud that he got that donations, he makes it seem like it's like the guys working on the rigs. No, it was the executives, and they maxed out. And then when you see that he voted with them after, throughout his career receiving the money from oil executives, then you begin to put 2 and 2 together.
So the top 20 recipients from the House of the fossil fuel, donations, like out of all 20, there are only 2 Democrats that make that list. And of course, Beto O'Rourke is one of them. He's literally at the top of the list of the 20. And then the second Democrat is, can you guess?
Is it Cuellar?
Yes, Cuellar.
Oh, yeah.
Cuellar from Texas.
So he's the first guy that Just Democrats announced that they are going to primary.
Yeah.
So justdemocrats.com.
So I said earlier when we were just introing this that his response on climate change and energy was a deal breaker. The part that was a deal breaker wasn't entirely contained in that video. It's not the donations, it's the future that he apparently envisions for fossil fuel development in this country. And when you combine what he said about respecting the industry and all that, that's fine, you're always going to say that. The next step is, and we're going to wind down that industry. We are going to celebrate the closure of every coal plant that remains in the US. We're gonna wind down natural gas faster than many people are expecting is going to be the case, because a future where we are trying to pull every drop of oil out of the ground and every lump of coal, and we're still gonna be relying on natural gas, is fundamentally inconsistent with the scientific consensus of every model of how we actually deal with climate crisis, with the climate breakdown that we're experiencing right now. And when he talks about seeing this continuing into the future and perhaps exporting more, I hate the earlier answers he gave that I loved even more, because if you actually understand the extreme weather events that are being driven in many cases by climate change, if you understand the scientific consensus on the timeline, if you understand all of that and you still think that we're going to have a vibrant, growing fossil fuel extraction and exporting industry in this country, then I have to assume that you are lying about the earlier stuff, because those two things do not go together. And if you're saying it's important for us in America to transition to renewable energy, like we're gonna have solar and wind, and then we're gonna be giving coal to those countries and natural gas to those countries. What do you think the climate is? You think it ends at our borders? You think it stops when the ocean starts? That's not how the world works.
And so, yeah, I think the follow up to me is around Keystone XL and all that. So do you, because that follows, he would have to support those pipelines if he believes that we should be exporting more to other countries. I just wanna follow up and say that if you're from Texas, if you're from Louisiana, and you're a Democrat, that's not incompatible to say, yes, maybe I made some money from the oil and gas industry, but exactly, going forward, we're looking at a just transition away from fossil fuels so that we can save the world. But because you're talking about, well, there are community organizers whose families were involved in the oil and gas industry. Are they toxic for the rest of their lives? No, not at all. But this is literally, it's like the Aurora, whatever that snake is that's eating its own butt, you know, the Ouroboros, right? It's basically that's what the industry is, because you can literally see, if you go to Louisiana, you see how they have to actually build roads that go farther inland because all of that wetland has been eaten away. Tankers are going through, and then of course, sea level rise. So like, there is a way to be a principled Democrat when it comes to climate change and be from an oil producing state, and he's not it. And I don't know, that's disqualifying for me.
So I want to teach and learn here. So the bills that Anna referred to, that Beto O'Rourke voted with the Republicans, the majority of the Texas Democrats voted against those bills. That goes to Francesca's point. He didn't have to do it just because he's from Texas. And apparently I learned that there's a butt-eating snake, which I did not know before.
Okay. Where does this butt-eating snake exist?
Oh, you'll find he makes himself known when the time is right.
And by the way, he eats his own butt, not our butts.
Oh, he eats his own butt.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, he'd like to get to your butt, but he's focused on his.
Yeah, he's focused on his own butt, but ultimately it gets to everyone's.
Okay.
It's the original human centipede, but in snake form.
And I learned from John that the climate does not stop at our oceans, because as George Bush taught us, the oceans don't protect us anymore. and as Donald Trump told us, islands are surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.